Okay guys, in this episode we're doing some if, else, endif in our Flask templates, and I've refreshed our cities list here that we've been working on, and you can see that we've got some dynamic output here. It says Saskatchewan is not on the west coast. If I refresh to a different province or territory in this case, you can see it says Yukon is almost on the west coast. It is on the Arctic Ocean, which is true. Or if I put in BC into our URL there, we get a different list, and that list has the province you selected is on the west coast. Today we're adding if statements to our Flask template. I'm your host, Sean MacKenzie. Thanks for joining me once again on my channel on data engineering. In this episode we go back to our Flask playlist, and we're going to take a look at statements. Now, statements are really awesome, and they're a way that you can use your Flask templates, and you can have some logic inside of your templates in order to run statements like if-then statements, or your for next loops and things like that, so that you can change the output on the fly when your HTML output is being created. Now we're going to use our little app that we've been building so far, and that has a list of provinces or states if you want to use states, and it allows us to have some output that we took from an Excel sheet as our data source, and we're outputting it into our web page. And now we have some dynamic output that we can do in order to give our users a richer experience. Let's get to it. Interested in time collection for your staff and contractors out in the field? Make sure to check out my Bill Zone solution. The link is in the description. Okay guys, this is a fun one today. We're using our command prompt here, and we are going to start our application just like we did in previous episodes. If you haven't done those episodes yet, you might want to go watch those ones in order to get a grounding in Flask. If you're just here to look for if-then logic in your templates, then you've come to the right place. Okay, to start our application here, we are just using a few simple commands. We're going to change our directory to our working directory for Flask. We'll activate our virtual environment there, and then to run our app, we're just going to use that Flask command, Flask app my app run. And then that's going to start the server, and it's going to load up our application, and we are going to be good to go. If we want to bring up our browser, we can do that. We can punch in localhost 5000, and that'll give us our base page that we've got here that we've changed many times, and now it's just an index page. We can fill that in later. We also have a provinces route, which we described in a previous episode, and it just has a placeholder for now. But then we have a variable, which we also described in that previous episode, and there we go. Now we can choose our output depending on the URL that we put in. But now what we'd like to do is we'd like to have a little bit of dynamic output, and so you can see that BC there. We were able to get the province name, and that's a little bit of dynamic output, but we'd like to have a little bit more. We'd like to have some if-then functionality in our template. And so here's our template, and you can see it's just a HTML file that we've got sitting in our directory here. Now this is our Flask directory. Very, very simple. There's the app file that we're working on. Those are some instructions because I forget things all the time. And then there's the World Cities Excel file, and many thanks to simplemaps.com for that data. And if we go into our templates folder, there is the templates file. That is the file that I have open in Notepad++ here. So nothing special, basically a text file. You can open it in VS Code or Notepad++, or even just Notepad if you want. And there is our header that we have from last time, and this here is an expression inside of those curly braces there, and the expression is a variable that we used, and you can see we did another expression here where we were able to use a variable from our Python code. We can pass that variable in. We were able to mark that one safe because we actually passed in some HTML to be rendered as part of our page. And so we have this province name here. Let's go take a look at that in our Python code. So here we go. This is the myapp.py that's running, and there's the province name variable that we passed in to the render template function there, you can see. And so we're able to reference that here. And this is the province list HTML table. It's actually just a string that is an HTML table. And there is the variable in Python, and we're passing that in as well to our render template function. And so that province list is actually HTML marked up, and we know that HTML is safe, but to use it inside of our double curly braces for an expression here, we have to use that safe flag there. And so that's basically what we've been doing so far. We've got our province name, and we're going to use that. Province name is just passed in without the safe flag because it is already safe, and it doesn't need to be escaped because it is not HTML like the province list is there. Okay, and so one of the really great things about Flask and Flask templates is that we can use, just like we used our expressions inside of the double curly braces, we can use the curly brace with the %, and we can use statements which have logic in them, and that makes our template processing very, very dynamic, and that's really awesome for building web applications. And that is exactly what we're doing here, is we're building a simple little web application, and so we can do that. So let's put in our start and end tags, and so you'll notice that I was able to put in if province name is equal to British Columbia, and then we're going to put a block of HTML after that statement, and we can use expressions inside of there as well, and so that makes it really awesome. So we can have a huge block of HTML that only runs if this statement is correct. In this case, we're only doing one line, and then after that block we can either put an endif or we can put else, and we'll also do an else if in a moment here, but let's just do else. And you can see how the statement tags there are sort of in between the HTML, or the HTML is in between the statement tags. It is nice and simple and easy to implement, and this is one of the powerful things about using Flask, is that you can do these kinds of statements. And of course you can do things like use expressions inside of here as well, just like we did before. There is our province name, so that is dynamic, and that comes from our Python code, and so we can say, you know, province name is not on the West Coast, and that is nice and easy there. We'll just put that one line in there, and then we can do another set of tags for our statement, and that is going to be an endif statement, and that completes our if, else, endif set of blocks there. And so we can say, you know, if the province name is equal to British Columbia, you know, then do this HTML here. Oh, and it looks like I'm missing an end tag there on my, let's put that bolding, the end of bold there, the closing tag, there we go. So the province you selected is on the West Coast. Otherwise say, you know, whatever province you selected is not on the West Coast. And so that sort of demonstrates how to use that if, else, endif set of blocks there. So we're going to have that if the province name is equal to British Columbia, you know, do that. Otherwise, we're going to do something else. And so that's definitely the kind of program flow that's going to be very, very handy for building web applications. So let's go ahead and stop our application. So we'll use that Control-C to quit, and then we'll use the up arrow on our keyboard to restart it with the new file in there. And so we can do that. We just hit up arrow and then enter, and we're good to go. That has restarted. Let's pull up our browser and see what we get. Hopefully we didn't break anything here. Let's go ahead and refresh this page. So we've got BC selected in there right now. In our URL, if I hit refresh, I do get the province you selected is on the West Coast. So that's exactly what we want to see there. Let's see if the other branch is working in our if, else, endif, and it looks like it is. So we put Alberta in, and we've got Alberta is not on the West Coast. And so there we go. We could put in Saskatchewan, and we've got Saskatchewan is not on the West Coast. And that is awesome. That's what we want to see there. Those provinces are in Western Canada, but they are not on the West Coast, and that's exactly what we want to see there. And so to recap, this is our province name here. We've used it in several places in our code, and that variable is coming in through the render template function here. When we call that in Python to, you know, render the page, we're passing in that province name, and that's what's getting collected there. So we could also we could do things like add an elif in here if we wanted to. So we could add another line with a curly brace, %, tag, just like we did before, and we can use that elif to do some different kind of logic that we might want. And so here we go, we can use that tag. So else if province name is equal to Yukon, we can give a different message. And just like before, we can finish our statement and then put a block of HTML after our else if statement, and that will be rendered instead of the other HTML that you see in the first condition or the else condition. And so we'll put a bold in there again, and we'll say province name. So we're going to use our expression again. That is the double curly brace there, and the expression is going to be the variable that we passed in from Python. And so that province name is loaded with whatever you chose, and we want to display something different if it happens to be Yukon. So we'll say province name, which will be Yukon in this case, is almost on the west coast, and it is on the Arctic Ocean, which is also true. It has an Arctic Ocean coastline, but no Pacific Ocean coastline, and so that makes it, I guess, north coast. But there we go. So we've got our province name. Now you can see that we've used our variable quite a few times there. We're finding out if it is British Columbia, if it is Yukon, and then we have a catch-all else at the end of that. And so we can save it, and let's go run that again. So we'll do the same thing that we did before. We'll use that Control-C to quit our little server there, and then we'll rerun it again, and we'll be good to go. So let's use the up arrow and hit enter, and that will start it again, and then we can hit refresh on our browser, and there we go. Now we've got Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is not on the west coast, and then we can say Yukon, which is YT. That's the abbreviation for Yukon. Yukon is almost on the west coast. It is on the Arctic Ocean, and it has one city that fits our criteria, which is Whitehorse. And there we go, we've got BC. So if I hit BC on there, it'll say the province you selected is on the west coast, and that is showing some dynamic processing that we can do with our Flask template, and it makes it super handy and flexible for our web applications. And those are the tags that we want to see for our statements, and that is how you can use statements with your Flask templates in Python. Want to disrupt RDP brute forcers? Make sure to check out my BZ RDP cloaker solution. The link is in the description.